Okay, today is day number 3, and that means we are reviewing the black cards in Ravnica Allegiance. I'm kind of excited about this because black is one of my favorite colors. And let's just get right started right here. Don't forget, this is going to be for a mostly limited setting. If I do notice something that will go in a constructed deck, I'll mention it. But again, mostly for draft or sealed. Okay, so first card we're going to see right now is Awaken the Erstwhile. It's 3 and 2 black for a sorcery that says each player discards all the cards in their hand, then creates that many 2/2 black zombie tokens. I don't really understand this card at all. I mean, because that includes your opponent with each player. So this doesn't seem like that good of a card unless you have a way to make your opponent have no hand and then you don't care what you're discarding. But generally, if you were drafting a good deck, you don't want to be drafting you don't want to be discarding those good cards anyway. So this doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, this card. And I am not going to be looking forward to it. Won't be drafting this one highly. Let somebody else rare draft it, but it won't be me. Next we have Bankrupt in Blood. It's 1 and a black for a sorcery. As an additional cost to cast the spell, sacrifice 2 creatures, and you can draw 3 cards. The only way I'm going to cast this card is if I have a lot of tokens laying around, because sacrificing 2 creatures is a real cost. I'm not a big fan of it unless I'm either getting tokens out of it, or if, say, there's an Afterlife 2 creature where I'm getting more creatures back than, I'm actually sacrificing. But, I mean, you're going to have to work to make this a good card. 2 mana for 3 cards is good, but that additional cost is a little too much for me. So, unless it's in the right deck, this card is not one you want to be drafting. And next, we have Blade Juggler. It's 4 and a black for a 3/2 human rogue. I love the art on these kind of cards. The Rakdos just look so good to me. It says when it enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to you and you draw a card. It also has Spectacle for 2 and a black. I'll explain Spectacle. It says you may cast this spell for its Spectacle cost rather than its mana cost if an opponent lost life this turn. So as long as you can deal a point of damage before it enters the battlefield, such as during an attack or with a spell or something, if you do, then you get to cast it for only 3 mana. And a 3 mana 3/2 that lets you draw a card is well worth it. 5 is okay, but again, I don't really want to do that. I want to be doing this with the Spectacle cost. Next, we have Blade Brand. It's 1 and a black for an instant that says target creature gains death touch until end of turn. Draw a card. Not a huge fan of this one either. I mean, it's a good battle trick if one of your tokens, is blocking. I think that's going to be the best way that this card gets used. If there are a lot of tokens, and I haven't really looked that far ahead to see how many there are, but if there are a lot of tokens, then this will be fine with that. I wouldn't want to be using it on a creature because it doesn't give the creature any regenerative abilities or prevent the damage to it, make it indestructible or anything like that. So try to use it on a token and then at least draws a card and kills a creature. Next we have Blood Mist Infiltrator. It's 2 and a black for a 3/1 vampire. Whenever Blood Mist Infiltrator attacks, you may sacrifice another creature. If you do, Blood Mist Infiltrator can't be blocked this turn. Unless you want to be sacrificing something again, I'm not really looking forward to this. I mean, a 3/1 for 3 mana is below curve, and it's only a slight upside, so I'm not going to be looking forward to this unless, again, there's a lot of ways to sacrifice. I mean, Afterlife is a keyword, so maybe that would help. I don't know, I think I'm going to have to play with it more before I see exactly how much I like it, but just on its face, I'm not a big fan of this card. Carrion Imp is 3 and a black for a 2/3 flying imp. When it enters the battlefield, you may exile target creature card from a graveyard. If you do, gain 2 life. So I'm seeing right now a 4 mana flying 2/3. It's below curve. When it enters the battlefield, you can exile a creature from a graveyard. I don't think there's a whole lot of things that say bring a creature back from the graveyard. If there are, maybe this will go up a little bit. But gaining 2 life even on that, I'm not a big fan of this card again. This doesn't look very great. I mean, it's fine. It is a flying creature, but yeah, no, I'm all set on drafting that one highly. Draft it lowly. Next, we have the Catacomb Crocodile. It's 4 and a black for a 3/7 with a lot of flavor text. Flavor text is kind of fun, but that's about it. It's a 3/7, so it's going to be a great blocker. I know just the 7 toughness is probably going to be a fine card to draft. I wouldn't want too many of these in my deck, but I'm happy with this card. It just is, you know, like a number 23, 22 card in my deck. I'll take it. Next we have Clear the Stage. It's 4 and a black for an instant that says target creature gets -3/-3 until end of turn. If you control a creature with power 4 or greater, you may return up to 1 target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So let's look at it, let's break it down a little bit. 5 mana for target creature gets -3/-3 until end of turn. Not very good. I mean, I guess it'll kill some things, but it doesn't even kill everything, and doesn't kill the ones you really are worried about. Then if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, so far, just going through the ones we've looked at so far, 0 have had power 4 or greater. So I don't know how many times that's going to come up. I guess looking down a few, there's a few. This one just doesn't seem very good to me. I mean, it's very conditional. If you work at it, this is going to be a great card. But if you just need a kill spell, I think you can do better than 4 and a black for target creature gets -3/-3 until end of turn. Next we have Consigned to the Pit. It's 5 and a black for a sorcery that says destroy target creature. Consigned to the Pit deals 2 damage to that creature's controller. Wow, removal is not good in this set by the looks of it so far. 6 mana to destroy target creature and deal 2 damage. That is awfully expensive. I don't even remember one recent set where it's cost 6 mana to destroy a creature. Usually it's 5 with upside. Now it's 6 with marginal upside. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of this card. I mean, it does say destroy target creature, but that cost is far too much for me. Next we have Cry of the Carnarium. Carnarium? Not sure how to pronounce that word. Anyway, it's 1 and 2 black for a sorcery. All creatures get -2/-2 until end of turn. Exile all creatures in all graveyards that were put there from the battlefield this turn. If a creature would die this turn, exile it instead. So we've seen a lot of these kind of spells recently. 3 mana, all creatures get -2/-2. Some of them have said exile. So an important part to remember with this card is it's exile all creature cards that were put there this turn, and for the rest of the turn, if a creature would die, exile it. Make sure you don't forget that. That's kind of an important thing right there. Yeah, you're going to want this. Then you know to play around it. Either have 3 toughness creatures in your deck, or just kind of wait and let them empty their hand of small creatures, and then you just board wipe them. Either way, this is going to be a very good card. Okay, and next we have Dead Revels. It's 3 and a black. Sorcery to return up to 2 creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. It has a spectacle cost of 1 and a black. So for 3 and a black to return 2 creatures is fine. It's a little below curve. Normally I would expect that to cost 3. But a spectacle only costing 2 is really good. You want to be in that. So usually that'll happen after combat anyway. So for 2 mana to get 2 creatures that just died, that's really good. You want to play this. Next I have Debtor's Transport. It's 5 and a black for a 5/3 Thrall with Afterlife 2. Now, I think Afterlife, oh, I should probably mention Afterlife if you haven't watched the white video yet. It says, when this creature dies, create 2 1/1 white and black spirit creature tokens with flying. So a 6 mana 5/3 is just about right. I mean, I would kind of hope for, you know, like a 5/4 or 5/5 in black, but it's fine because even if it dies, you get 2 1/1 flying creatures, and that's going to be strong. And this helps, what was the one earlier? The clear the stage, because it does have more than power of 4. So I like this card, personally. I mean, I don't want too many of them in my deck, but like one is fine. Next we have Drill Bit. 2 in the black for a sorcery. Target player reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from it. That player discards that card. Which, that right there is about what you would expect to cast for that, where you get to choose. But if you get the Spectacle, it only costs 1 black. And that is like Thoughtseize power. It's better than Thoughtseize at that point. So, I don't know. This might have some constructed playability. And the art, again, is just amazing. This guy's all real happy. He has no idea what's going to happen to him. It's kind of great. Anyway, I wouldn't take this too highly in draft. It's to make an opponent discard a single card. You don't gain anything by it, so don't draft it highly, but I think it is a constructed level card. Font of Agonies is next. It's a single black mana for an enchantment. Whenever you pay life, put that many blood counters on Font of Agonies. You can pay 1 and a black and remove 4 blood counters from Font of Agonies to destroy target creature. Oh boy, this card seems so good to me. Oh, wait a minute, hold up. Okay, let me reread that again. Whenever you pay life, put that many blood counters on Font of Agonies. I haven't seen anything that makes you pay life yet, have you? Okay, so for now, I'm going to say this is terrible. Oh man, I thought it was if you lost life. Okay, whenever you pay life. Okay, so let's just be on the lookout for anything that helps us pay life. Because if there's a lot of them, especially at common, then this card will be fine. But otherwise, this looks like a bad card. And I am not going to be looking forward to this. Unless there's a few cards that say pay some life. Next, we have Grotesque Demise. It's a 2 and a black for an instant. Exile target creature with power 3 or less. We've had this card before, and I think it's cost 4 before. I don't know. I can't really remember. It's either 3 or 4. This is about where I'd want to be for a card like this. This card seems great to me. Most cards in Limited are going to be power 3 or less. And this kind of just gets rid of whatever's giving you a hard time. So, yeah, you're going to want to take this kind of highly. Next, we have Gutter Bones. It's a single black mana for a 2/1 Skeleton Warrior. Gutter Bones enters the battlefield tapped. You can pay 1 and a black to return Gutter Bones from your graveyard to your hand. Activate this ability only during your turn and only if an opponent lost life this turn. So it basically has Spectacle to return it to your hand. And that's the kind of card that I like right here. It's a 1 mana 2/1 that really doesn't die. I mean, it does, but then you can get it back. This might be a good thing to sacrifice to other things, because it's going to keep coming back. So, yeah, I would take this kind of highly. I mean, maybe not first pick if there's a better card in the pack, but I'm a fan of this one. Next, we have Ill-Gotten Inheritance. It's 3 and a black for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, Ill-Gotten Inheritance deals 1 damage to each opponent, and you gain 1 life. You can pay 5 and a black and sacrifice Ill-Gotten Inheritance, and it deals 4 damage to target opponent, and you gain 4 life. Ugh, this does not look very good. Unless you have a ton of mana. I mean, yeah, it's going to do 1 damage per turn. You're going to gain some life, so it actually kind of helps there. I'm going to say this card is fine. Like, it's not a great card. It's a card I would like to have maybe one of in my deck, because you're gonna just leave it out there, and at some point you're gonna get your opponent down to 4, or you're gonna need to gain 4 life, and it's there for you. But I mean, you're paying 10 mana at that point. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not gonna take a bunch of these. Maybe like one would be fine. That's about all. Next we have Nauseous Grudion. It's 2 in the black for a 2/2 beast with Death Touch. This is perfectly average for what I would expect. 2/2 Death Touch for 3 mana is always pretty much the casting cost for it, so take it, draft it as you normally would. Next we have Orzhov Enforcer. It's 1 in a black for a 1/2 human rogue with Death Touch and Afterlife 1. I'm a really big fan of this card. 1/2 with Death Touch is great. I mean, it's going to be a solid blocker for everything. And the fact that even after it does die by blocking and killing a creature, you're still going to get a 1/1 spirit. So take this one relatively highly, especially if you're a more defensive deck, because this is a really good card. Next you have the Orzhov Racketeers. It's 4 in the black for a 3/2 human rogue. Whenever Orzhov Racketeers deals combat damage to a player, that player discards a card. And it has Afterlife 2. So 5 mana 3/2 is below curve, but it does have the upside if it deals damage to a player, they discard a card. With a 3/2 body, it's not going to happen very often. Oftentimes they're just going to block it and kill it. So I mean, I don't know. This card seems okay. I'm not going to be wanting a bunch of them, that's for sure. Because 5 mana is just an awful lot for a 3/2 body. And I mean, it's not going to deal damage that often with a 3/2 body. I mean, they can just put anything in front of it and it's going to kill it off. The Afterlife 2 is the big deal on it. So, I mean, you know what you're going to get. It's probably going to kill 1 creature and then get 2 flying creatures for 5 mana. So that's not terrible. Okay, next we have Pestilent Spirit. It's a 2 and a black for a 3/2 spirit with Menace and Death Touch. Instants and sorcery spells you control have Death Touch. Wow. That's really strong. I really, really like this card. Both in Constructed and in Limited. It seems really good to me. Next we have Plague White. It's 1 and a black for a 2/1 zombie. When Plague White becomes blocked, each creature blocking it gets -1/-1 until end of turn. I like this card. It's kind of the same as like the Ornery Goblin from the last set, except this one gives -1/-1, so maybe it'll even survive if they block with a 1/1. Like, spirits can't stop the Plague White. So this is one of the few 1 toughness creatures that I think I'm actually going to enjoy drafting. Yeah, this seems like a really good card to me. Next, we have Priest of Forgotten Gods. It's 1 and a black for a 1/2 human cleric. It has tap, sacrifice 2 other creatures. Any number of target players each lose 2 life and sacrifice a creature. You add black and draw a card. So let's go over this just because I like to, when I read a card, really just go over it again in my head so that way I know exactly what's happening. So 2 mana 1/2. Okay, that's fine. It has a crazy upside. So tap it, sacrifice 2 other creatures, so you can't sacrifice itself. Any number of target players each lose 2 life and sacrifice a creature. So if you're sacrificing tokens, this is going to be doing quite a bit because you're going to be adding black and drawing a card. So you're sacrificing a creature to add a black and draw. Yeah, I like this card. This has some real shenanigans written all over it. I'm a big fan of this both in Constructed and Limited. I'd like to play with this in Constructed. I think it'd be kind of fun. Next is Rakdos Trumpeter. It's 1 and a black for a 1/3 human shaman. with Menace. It has an activated ability of 3 and a red. Rakdos Trumpeter gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Not a fan of this card. I'm like, it's one of those ones that's middle of the road. Okay, a 1/3 Menace for 2 is I guess okay, but it's not a card I would ever draft. Its activated ability is fine. Like, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of this. 4 mana to give it +2/+0. Okay, I guess. I see this more as a blocker, and I don't see it as a very strong Rakdos card. It actually kind of looks disappointing for Rakdos. Next I have Spawn of Mayhem. It's 2 black for a 4/4 demon with flying and trample. So just stop right there. It's a 4 mana flying 4/4 trample. If it has any upside whatsoever, this is a windmill slam type card. If it has a downside, it still might be a pretty good card. So its text box says, at the beginning of your upkeep, Spawn of Mayhem deals 1 damage to each player. Then, if you have 10 or less life, put a +1/+1 counter on Mayhem. Spawn of Mayhem. So it has upside. Quite a bit of upside. And it also spectacles for only 3 mana. This card is bonkers. You take this card every single time you get the chance. It's a 4 mana flying 4/4 trample with a ton of upside. I mean, I don't have to, I'm not telling you anything you don't know already if you play Magic, that this card is so good. Next is Spire Mangler. 2 in the black for a 2/1 flying insect with flash. When Spire Mangler enters the battlefield, target creature with flying you control gets +2/+0 until end of turn. So this is a really good blocker, because they won't expect it, and all of a sudden it comes down as a 4/1 flying creature. It's going to kill off, say, that Spawn of Mayhem that we just saw. Or it can also just be a battle trick for one of your other flying creatures when it's attacking. And 3 mana for a flying 2/1 is about what you'd expect in black. In blue, you might want it for 2 mana, but this is about right. Next, we have Thirsting Shade. It's 1 black mana for a 1/1 with lifelink. It is 2 in the black for Thirsting Shade, gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So the threat of activation on this card, which means sometimes you have 6 mana, your opponent has a 2/2 creature, they're not going to block this because they know you can make the creature a 3/3 lifelink. So sometimes just the fear of that is really all you need to keep getting in there for 1 or 2 damage and then cast your other spells still. So if you do have this card in your hand, make sure you attack first and then play your spells afterward, because you don't know what you're going to need for mana for this ability, or any at all. Next, I have the Undercity Scavenger, 3 into black. When Undercity Scavenger enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice another creature. If you do, put 2 +1/+1 counters on Undercity Scavenger and then scry 2. So, looking at this, the Undercity Scavenger, it's a 4 mana 3/3 creature, which is about average. That's what I would expect. But it has upside, so that's always a good thing. If you sacrifice another creature, we seem to have a lot of sacking abilities in this set, so I think that that's going to be an easy thing to do. You can put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. So it's a 4 mana 5/5, which is a great card. So I think this card is perfectly great. You want to be drafting this, maybe not super highly, but definitely above the halfway point in the pack, I would say. Undercity's Embrace is 2 into black for an instant. Target opponent sacrifices a creature, and if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, you gain 4 life. 3 mana for an opponent to sacrifice a creature is maybe a little more expensive than I would like, but it's right around 2 or 3 mana is what I would expect. If you happen to have the creature with power 4 or greater, there again isn't many, but maybe if you get some counters or something going on, then it's fine. Then it has upside. So if this is mostly if you are playing against a hexproof creature, you're really going to want this in your deck. Get rid of everything else and make them sacrifice it. So take it kind of middle of the pack, I would say, because if there's a lot of 1/1 like spirits about like everywhere, this card does nothing, and you really don't want this card. So be prepared to side this one out if it's in your main deck, or side it in if you notice your opponent doesn't have a lot of tokens. Next, you have Vindictive Vampire. It's 3 and a black for a 2/3 vampire. Whenever another creature you control dies, Vindictive Vampire deals 1 damage to each opponent, and you gain 1 life. Okay, this is the card that is going to make the sacrifice deck really strong. Anytime you're sacrificing things, you're gaining life, you're dealing damage. I've seen this work many times with much smaller creatures, because 0/1 I think is what the Blood Artist is. So the 4 mana for the 2/3 body, I'm actually not against that. I kind of think this is going to be fine. So take this and then make the sacrifice deck. Do it. It'll be fun. You'll have a good time. So next we have something you can't even draft, but I will talk about it anyway. It is the Buy a Box promo. It is the Haunt of Hightower. It's 4 black for a 3/3 flying lifelink vampire. Whenever Haunt of Hightower attacks, defending player discards a card. So he doesn't even have to hit, he just has to attack. I like it right there. Whenever a card is put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, put a +1/+1 counter on the Haunt of Hightower. So when it first attacks, if your opponent has a card in hand, this is automatically a 4/4 flying lifelink. This is a very, very strong card. The only problem in Constructed I see is it costs 6 mana. But I mean, it's worth 6 mana. I mean, it is really, really strong. So, I mean, you're not going to be drafting this. If it was a draftable card, oh my god, you definitely put it in your deck every single time. But it's not. So, maybe it'll find a home somewhere in Constructed. But that is all for black. Thank you very much for listening to me and hearing what I have to say about all the black cards in Ravnica Allegiance. Tomorrow I'll be reviewing all of the red cards, and that should be a lot of fun. So thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.